So I wanted to take the opportunity to say hi. Thanks for chiming in. Hoping this is all temporary. I don't have answers about what if this is how it is the rest of the school year. I'm just going to kind of like play it by ear, as I'm sure anybody with the inability to predict the future should be doing. You are going to have, hopefully you have me on the tab now, but I'd also like you right now to open another tab for Google Classroom on your Chromebook, okay? Because there's two things I'm going to have you guys open up for today. And then I'd like you to come back to me because I'm going to share my screen and much of that is on there. Oh, PJ left. I wonder what happened. I'll give him a he'll I'm sure he'll come back in. Let me send this to Giselle too. So once you have that tab open, that's fine. I want you to come back to me. All right. And you should see my shared screen is going to be of our classroom page. I want to quickly, again, touch base about where we're at this week and what I plan content-wise for next week. We have been reading Beowulf this week. On Monday, we as a class read The Wrath of Grendel. Okay. And we filled out I gotta get Devin, that's fine. She's in another group now. We filled out the paraphrase for the fill in the blanks. Okay. Again, you should be looking at my screen now as I go over this stuff. This is what I would be projecting in class. I wanted to remind, as I told you, our first reading of any text is just to, if I zoom up here, to identify key ideas and details. Okay. And that was our goal. And then if, I had added that answer any reading checks in the margins of the pages when on a textbook. That's not really what we were doing. That's kind of from the last version of me teaching this in person. So we did that and that was our goal. Okay. Then on Tuesday, you guys were remote and you guys should have taken the reading check on The Wrath of Grendel. It was in the form of a Google Forms that should have locked it on your page. There were just 8 multiple choice questions. And I told you, review what was the day before to start. I can't imagine that was that hard. They're 1 point each. My goal was just to get you to bulk up that test quiz category that I know is a little imbalanced with only vocabulary right now. Okay. And again, it was just basic, like what stuff happened in the previous day's reading. And then I wanted you guys to attempt to read the next section independently. So Coming of Beowulf was pages 44 to 48. I wanted to do this and I did not do this for you guys. I will add it in there. Sorry, I'm losing my train of thought. There was a paraphrasing worksheet that went with that. I am going to make a note to myself right now. I wanted to add to it a link of what Anglo-Saxon English sounded like, reading the opening passage. I'm just going to do it now, actually. Old English opening. And the reason that I showed this in class, it's just a 40-second clip. This is the opening to Beowulf. This is not what we have read because we have excerpts and we don't get the beginning. But I just want you to listen to it for 40 seconds. On Tuesday, I should have added this video to it for you. So we'll just watch it together now.
Eis or airless, see the nearest word, fair-shaft funden, he das vrouwerie bad works under Waldenham.
Oh, did I show you guys this already or no? Anybody talk to me?
You did.
Oh, okay, good. All right, sorry. What day is it? I don't know. I had to take my kid to middle school this morning because she normally takes the shuttle bus from the high school. And so I had to take her today because there's no shuttle bus from the high school to the middle school. And I couldn't remember where the middle school was. So remembering what I've showed one class and another is also a challenge. All right, so that was Tuesday. Okay, and I showed you in class. You know what it is? It's the cohort R kids that didn't see it. I showed you the trailers of the movie and that. Yesterday, you guys did something that I would argue is part of this, second reading and third reading of a text. Instead of reading something new yesterday, what I had to do was go back to The Wrath of Grendel and The Coming of Beowulf and say, all right, what poetic elements? Do I see kennings? Do I see alliteration? I know I haven't talked about caesures yet. I'll talk about them briefly at some point. They're just rhythmic pauses in the lines, but we don't have a physical marking in the text of Beowulf that shows us that. Just the placement of punctuation often falls in the middle of the line. And can you connect this to bigger ideas? And so that was yesterday's task. I see that I don't have a lot submitted there, which is making me think some of us didn't do it, and that's something that needs to be done. Okay. But it looked like this, and it had you kind of refer back to a couple parts of what's already been read and explained to you. Who was this kenning for? What ways does it provide insight into the thing it's renaming? Can you give me 2 examples of alliteration that you saw in that section? On the second page, it had to do with coming of Beowulf, kenning question, alliteration question, and then I asked a question about that mix of Christian and pagan views in the same text that is related to, the theories about the authorship of Beowulf. Today, Thursday, we are not moving on to the next section of the text, but we are going to do something that I didn't have you do yet with the coming of Beowulf as a section. So today in our live class session, we're going to analyze how Anglo-Saxon values are conveyed through this. And if I have time, and I hope I will, we're going to watch a video that talks about how the image of the Anglo-Saxon ideal hero compares and contrasts with modern day figures, because there's going to be 1 or 2 traits that I would argue are not necessarily the same. And one of them is the fact that Anglo-Saxon heroes, they wanted them to boast and brag about their accomplishments. And arguably a lot of our modern day heroes that are preferred as humble. Humbleness is more of an attribute, although arguably characters like Iron Man are obviously known for their, very inflated opinion of themselves. So, let me close out some of what I don't need open now. On Thursday's posting, I want you to click on this worksheet so that it opens up in another tab for you. Okay, it's the activity for today. Okay, it's going to look like this. And I'm asking you to have that, and you should have 3 tabs on your screen. And I'm asking you that because I'm going to have you to, arguably you can just go back and forth with me. I'm going to be showing you the text that you're going to need to do. But if you wanted to have the PDF of the text open in a tab, it's going to open it right in the same tab of the classroom assignment. Okay. So let me get this worksheet so we can see it. All right. And you can look at it just on my screen. We're not filling anything in yet. Okay. It says the epic hero embodies the values and ideals of the culture that produces him or her. The description of Beowulf that's contained in this section reveals qualities that the Anglo-Saxons obviously valued. And I asked the questions, how do lines 109 to 124 show this? So we're going to read it. I'm going to read it. You don't have to read it on a separate tab. I'm going to zoom in. Okay. And before I get started, I'm just going to do a quick, where am I at here? I just have to do kind of quick check-ins every now and then to make sure everybody's in the place that they need to be, because we're going to start filling in the worksheet. And so I don't know, I'm pretty sure this is how it works. If you hit the space bar, it will let you unmute temporarily. And so I'm just going to do a quick roll call. I don't need you to show yourself. I just want to say, do you have your worksheet open? And can you see my screen with the text? Are we good to go? Okay. So Yasira, are you good to go? I heard something. Yes.
I think so.
Okay. You can see my screen, and in another tab on your Chromebook, do you have the worksheet open in addition to the Meet tab?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. That's what I'm asking. Okay. Maddie, are you good?
Yep.
Okay. Aaron?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Brooke?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Damien?
Yeah, I'm good.
Thank you. Catherine?
I'm good.
Will?
I'm good.
PJ?
I'm good.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to read lines 109 to 124. What we're doing is I'm kind of going backwards here. Normally I guess I should read this and say, what can you tell is important to these people? I'm kind of already giving you the table that says, these are some things that are in here. Can we find some textual evidence from the text to support that? And then we're going to type them in. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and read. In his far-off home, Beowulf, Higelac's follower and the strongest of the Geats, greater and stronger than anyone anywhere in this world, heard how Grendel filled knights with horror and quickly commanded a boat fitted out, proclaiming that he'd go to that famous king, would sail across the sea to Hrothgar, now when help was needed. None of the wise ones regretted his going, much as he was loved by the Geats. The omens were good, and they urged the adventure on. So Beowulf chose the mightiest men he could find, the bravest and best of the Geats, 14 in all, and led them down to their boat. He knew the sea would point the prow straight to that distant Danish shore. So the first question I'm posing to us here is this. How can I tell, just based on this brief opening introduction, and again, this is mostly based on the author's perspective or the storyteller's perspective at this point, how can I tell that strength must have mattered to these people or would have impressed them? Okay? I want you to look at the text, and I'd love if someone could say, I think I see proof of that here. And you could just tell me the lines or you can read it. All right? But I'd like to try to, and I'm going to try to encourage each person to chime in at least once. You could volunteer and get it out of the way, or I'll call on you and be like, all right, I might say read line 10, whatever, okay? But to start off with, I'm saying this. Where in this passage do we see some proof? Or you could arguably say this is proof to support the claim that strength was likely something that the Anglo-Saxons valued. Let me... Hi, this is me. Wondering if you have any ideas about where you could say what line there's some evidence that strength mattered to these people. Y'all wouldn't be in CP if you couldn't figure this out. I just need somebody willing to say it. Okay. I'll put the text back on the screen, but I'm looking for somebody to go on mute for me for a minute. And I did, listen, I didn't know if I'd have to bribe y'all, but I can. I did give +2 in classwork homework just to try to encourage people a bit. But I will call on folks too. All right. Does anybody see where we see some proof that strength must have mattered to these people that we could fill in this table?
Line 1.
Oh, hold on. Who is it? PJ or Will? I heard a boy's voice.
Oh, that wasn't Will.
All right. I'm going to go with PJ on this one, but I'll get the rest of us in there. There's plenty of opportunity. All right, PJ, where do you see proof?
It says on line 110, follower and the strongest of
the gates. Gates, whatever.
Bigger and stronger than anyone anywhere in this world.
Excellent. Yep. So let's put that in there. Okay. Let me update. So do you see my screen? You're just going to kind of put that textual evidence. I quoted it as if I was citing it for an essay. You don't necessarily, I mean, you could copy what I did, but yeah, you found the proof. He's strongest of the gates, greater and stronger than anyone anywhere in this world. The fact that the author's mentioning that is our evidence. Obviously, this was important to them. Okay, so I'm going to give you a second to type that in there. And if you wonder what else is she doing, I'm actually just going in and making sure I log who. If I said I was going to give you some extra points on an assignment, that I'm going to do that. I'm going to tack it on to this assignment. It'll just be, that means your final grade will be more points than were actually possible in the category. Does that make sense? But I don't want to forget and lose this dang piece of paper. Okay. All right. The next, I don't want to go too fast, but I don't want to go too slow either. So I'm trying to figure out a balance here. So hopefully you've had opportunity to type that in your worksheet now. Again, if it's fine if you just have the main idea. You could type exactly what I put too. Don't get me wrong, but okay. So the next thing we're looking for is evidence of leadership. Okay, and I'm going to put this screen back up. Where could you, if you were looking for textual evidence to support the claim that the Anglo-Saxons value leadership, because I know that they really, that they put Beowulf up on a pedestal as kind of like the best you could possibly be, where could you argue there's some evidence that you could use from the text to support that claim? That's my next.
115.
Okay.
Would sail across the sea to Hrothgar. Now when help was needed, none of the wise ones regretted his going, much as he was loved by the Geats.
Yep. All right. We could just put the basic. What part of it did you say that none of us where he?
It was like, now when help was needed, none of the wise ones regretted his going.
Okay. None of the wise ones regretted his going. You could use that. Yep. I think all of it, obviously you would be able to say he goes, right?
Yeah.
That's part of it. If I was looking for the most specific evidence out of the text that said he up and went, Is there another spot that just kind of focuses on that part more? Again, you know the answer, but it's like, where is the strongest evidence to make that point? Do you see verbs that basically connect somewhere in that text, like this guy got up on his butt and did something? Look around line 113. That's what I'm going to argue is probably stronger, although you would be able to tell me, you would say he up and went and helped. And then I would say, okay, what evidence you would have pulled that you would use to validate that claim? I would say maybe it's a little stronger, where it says he quickly commanded a boat fitted out, proclaiming he'd go. You know what I mean? Because it's the action. Yeah. All right, so let's put that in there. It seems like I'm being a little lazy. It's because I did all this once already, and so I'm just going back through my history of my document and adding to it. Okay, yeah, I like that part. I think it's stronger, but you're not wrong in the sense, Catherine. You know what the answer is. Okay. But I would say that textual evidence is stronger because if I was analyzing that textual evidence in an essay, I would use quickly commanded and proclaimed he'd go. Like those verbs, those actions, that's leadership, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to give you all a second to fill that out. I'm going to make the case that for willingness to help others, since we're only looking at this really tiny section, my proof is probably going to be the same. He up and went and said he'd go help, right? Yeah. Arguably, you could say I can add a part to it. So if you want to cut and paste the text that you just typed for leadership and put it in this next block, you could. And you can see I did that on this screen here. Maybe I could add, I like the part when it says he was doing it now when help was needed. You know what I mean? Like that part. Yeah. I might add that to it. I think, I spelled needed wrong. That passage really emphasizes that. And I mean, you guys can imitate exactly what I'm doing. I'm showing you, I'm doing direct quotes. And the reason for that, I can show you the format. I put those brackets with those ... dots in because I skipped a line. And the brackets indicate that wasn't in the original directly quoted text, but I added that in there. But it makes sense. I didn't change anything like that compromised. Let's sail across this. Oh no, you know what? I didn't. I don't even need that there. And now it goes up to line what? Now when help was needed, line 116. And this is actually line 113 to 115. Huh? Sorry, it's nothing to lose sleep over. All right, lastly, bravery. Okay, let's see if I can get another voice in. So far, I've had PJ and Catherine, and then some of you tried. I don't know, Will, maybe you want to take this one, or Aaron. Where could you argue there's evidence that he's brave? And I think to find evidence that he's brave, you have to show evidence that something was scary. At least, and then I'm isolating you to this passage. Oh, Giselle's here. I didn't even see her join. Hi. Hi, girl. Good. I'm glad you're here. You don't have to respond right now. Will, you want to take this one? Where could there evidence that, like, at least just in this limited section I'm giving you, that bravery was needed because Grendel was scary? Maybe I shouldn't isolate one person. Maybe he took a bathroom break. Ysera.
Line,
oh, you're here?
113?
Definitely. Well, yeah. No, what is that? Line 112? Grendel filled nights with horror. Is that what you were going for?
Yeah.
Yep, that's the one I'd put. Yep. I think if you were isolated to this section and that was the only thing you could look for evidence, which it wouldn't be if you were doing the whole poem. I mean, we can even start with he heard that, you know. obviously if I was writing about this in an essay, I would keep talking. And then he still went. He went despite the fact that he, quote unquote, heard that Grendel filled knights with terror. Okay. Does that make sense? But if I was just limited to this exact section, which you wouldn't be in normal cases, I think that's your best option to make a case for bravery. And you would go on to explain how the fact that he had heard Grendel was full of terror, he knew what he was going into and still went. Okay. All right. Moving on. So you guys are going to type that out. The next part is going to have us take a look at Beowulf's response to the Danish Watcher, that scout dude that was like, hey, who are you? And when I say it was his challenge was tell me who you are, where you came from, the quicker the better. All right. And he does that in lines 173 to 179. That's going to help us understand the values of Anglo-Saxon culture too. Now we're only going to be looking at 6 lines, but I think, and it's going to seem obvious, but I'm laying this foundation now where you can see that from the get-go, some of these Anglo-Saxon values have been clear. You're going to see them even more clearer later, but the first hints of them were even early on. Okay. So we're going to I'm going to scroll down. Again, you don't have to do it in a separate tab if you don't want to. I've got it right here for you. This is in line 173 where Beowulf says their leader answered him. He's answering the man who saw the gates come up to the Danish shore and said, who are you? You don't have a password or anything. I've never seen somebody come so openly. I've never seen anybody like that dude there. You tell me who you are. And it's Beowulf. He looks very different. And that's, if you were looking for evidence that Beowulf sets himself apart, even without the text announcing it per se, the Danish Watchman says, I've never seen a guy like that before. You tell me who you are. It's implied that his physical presence is notably different than all other men. There's something extraordinary about this dude. Okay. And I think it's clever. And again, you could say, I don't care about Beowulf, but I think it's clever to realize those hints in the text that suggest that, because that skill, your ability to pick up on those hints, that's working the brains in here. That's working the muscles in this brain that I'm wanting you to do and apply to other things in your life. Okay. So let's go ahead and look at these lines. I'm starting in line 173. It says, we are Geats, men who follow Hygelac. My father was a famous soldier known far and wide as a leader of men. His name was Edgethoe. His life lasted many winters. Wise men all over the earth surely remember him still. Okay. Now for this section, I'm not going to ask you for direct quotes because we're working with such a small section anyway. My first question that I'm posing, okay, is this. Where is there some evidence that they value military prowess? And you're like, Ms. Gross, I don't know what that prowess is. Why are you using these big words? All right. I just looked it up. Skill or expertise. Now you know a new word. Okay. Where is there some proof that the Anglo-Saxons must value this? Because when asked who the heck he was, this is one of the first things he mentions. And it's not even about himself, which we'll get into. Aaron, you going for it?
My father was a famous soldier.
Boom. Yep, that's fine. Just say dad was a famous soldier. Again, if you were going to explain this more, and I'm not asking you to for the sake of today's activity, it's interesting that, he didn't even announce his name yet. He didn't say I'm Beowulf. He first, after he identifies his king and his tribe, I have a dad. He was a good soldier. So he's going to gain some credibility because dad was a famous soldier and they value famous soldiers. They value soldiers and the ability to be a good warrior. Does that make sense? I'll take our nods and cues. Good. All right. So just say dad was a famous soldier. That's fine. I don't need to go into more detail for the purpose of today and our limited time. All right. Next. Leadership. I mean, can somebody piggyback where Aaron just left off that I haven't heard from yet? Could be Giselle, Maddie, Yasira Brooke. Where I'm just saying, where's their evidence that obviously they thought being a leader mattered if I was only looking at these 6 lines?
I know it if they don't.
I know. That's okay. I appreciate that. It's okay to sit and wait, though. I'm going to call on somebody to look or find. I'm going to direct them where to look, even if they don't kind of know where to look yet. I'm going to tell you, you're going to find this in lines between lines 174 and 176. I'm just looking for the obvious here, but I'm looking to hear from either Giselle. Oh, Damien, you're hidden on my screen. Giselle, Damien, Maddie. I think Brooke and Yasira I haven't heard from yet. So if one of you guys can just say, I think it's in line, this line, that's fine. You want to call it a day there. I just want to hear kind of your thought from one of those folks. Do I see the word leader anywhere? And what does it say? Go ahead, Yasira.
As a leader of men.
Yeah. Dad was a leader of men. Okay. Oh, I spelled soldier wrong up here. Perfect. Dad was known as a leader of men. That's helping Beowulf's street cred here. He's not even talking about himself yet. And don't worry, he will. We'll look at that in a minute. Okay, great. Let's go on to the next page of the worksheet. Where can I tell in these 6 lines here that they valued longevity? Oh, dang, Miss Gerst, another big word. What the heck does that mean? Well, I'm just going to look it up. Longevity. Long life. Boom. Now you know another new word if you didn't know it before. I'm not saying you're dumb and don't know these words, but some kids get annoyed with me because they're like, why didn't you just say long life? Because you had the opportunity to learn a new word if I use longevity. All right, Damien, who else haven't I heard from yet? Giselle, Maddie, Brooke. Where is there some proof that they must value long life, that this was mentioned? Brooke, I see you're unmuted. Go ahead.
It says his life lasted many winters.
Yeah, whose life? Edgetho. And what's his connection to Beowulf?
His dad.
Yep, perfect. Okay. Dad lived many winters. You know, we talked about this in class, I think, where, you know, to live many winters, you can argue why maybe do they focus on winters. Arguably, you could say, I'm sure they didn't have a calendar, so you follow the seasons. Winter would be a very clear marker of each year, the rotation of the seasons. But secondly, to live through winter was impressive because that meant you had fortitude, like you were healthy, that you could get through it. And that said something about who you were. And also, if you've lived a long time, and we know this from our study of the Wanderer, with experience, which comes from being alive a while, comes wisdom. Okay. So hopefully you're seeing the connection, especially too with the next thing I think I asked you about here. Wisdom. How can I tell they valued wisdom based on this? All right. Damien, Giselle, or Maddie, ball's in your court. 6 lines. Is there any evidence here or mention of wisdom, and what is it?
Miss Gerst, I'll be right back. I have to take out my dog. She's growling at me.
Okay. Thank you for that heads up.
Line 78.
Line 178, right? Well,
Yeah, 178.
Yep. Wise men all over earth to surely remember him still. Okay. Apparently, the people that the wise men remember matter because the wise men's opinion of people matter, right? Does that make sense? You could phrase that in any way you want. I mean, I'm doing that very conversationally. I would never put that in an essay. The opinion, I could just say this. How can I tell wisdom matters? Wise men remember dad. That's noteworthy because the opinion of wise people must matter. Note that they're not worried about the wise women at this time. That's a separate note for another day. All right. And this is a little bit of a repeat here, but I'm okay with that. Well, having a respected father, how can I tell it? No, this is not a repeat, actually. How can I tell it matters? How can I tell that when asked who he was after his tribe and king, which apparently take precedence, I didn't ask a question about that, I should have. How can I tell that having a respected dad matters? What can you give me here? Who else is left? Maddie and Giselle. I got another question for us in the next section, though. Let me ask Maddie and Giselle, or Giselle this. Whoever chimes in first can be the one to take one, for the two of you for this moment. And I'll snag the other one and get a voice in later. Did Beowulf say what his name was? Maddie, why don't you take this for me? Unmute yourself for a second. You and I will just talk. Does Beowulf say what his name is? In this passage? No. He says, I'm a gate. This is my king. And I'm going to tell you all about my dad. So if I had to arguably make a case, having a respected father, this must matter more than Beowulf's own name and accomplishments, right? Yeah, you see how I'm making that case? Yeah. It's not explicitly stated in the text. And when I say explicitly, it doesn't just come out and say that. But I can read between the lines and think about what motivated somebody to do what they just did. And what can I infer from that? You know what I mean? We do that in everyday life too. I can make assumptions about people based on what they say, even if they never say it. So for instance, if my daughter is constantly talking about her science teacher, and again, she's just saying, oh, Mr. Longo did this, Mr. Longo did that, Mr. Longo did this, and blah, blah, blah. I can infer that she likes that class because that's the only class she talks about. She didn't say, I like this class, but I can infer. We're doing the same thing here. Even though Beowulf doesn't say, I know you think who my father is important. He doesn't say it, but I can tell because after the king and tribe, it's the only thing he talks about. Okay. All right, let's move on to the last section. We're going to focus on this part in the section of the coming of Beowulf where Beowulf is talking to Hrothgar. Now, I add the note that confidence, which is shown through boasting. Ms. Gerst, what does it mean to boast? Well, it's kind of a fancy word for taking excessive pride or self-satisfaction in yourself and your accomplishments. So he does talk about himself later, but it's not the first thing he identifies himself when it comes to his introductions. This is where our perception of the hero may differ from modern perceptions, but what I ask us to do is we're going to focus on lines 244 to 254. And I ask us just to bullet the great deeds that Beowulf boasts of and how this helps establish him as an epic hero. I'm going to scroll down on my screen if you pull me up here. Yeah. Okay, it starts at the bottom of page. I'm pretty zoomed in here, but it doesn't matter because you can see it on my screen. Okay. I'm starting in line 244. It says, my people have said, the wisest, most knowing, and best of them, that my duty was to go to the Danes' great king. They have seen my strength for themselves. Let me scroll over here. Boop, too zoomed in. Watched me rise from the darkness of war, dripping with my enemy's blood. I drove 5 great giants into chains. I chased all that race from the earth. I swam in the blackness of night, hunting monsters out of the ocean and killing them one by one. Death was my errand and the fate they had earned. All right. Oh, sorry, wrong page. I'm scrolling. All right. What has this dude done? Giselle, can you give me one accomplishment he boasts of? Is she there? I can't tell. Here she is. I hear someone. All right, give me one accomplishment he boasts of.
He drove 5 great giants into chains.
Yep, whatever the heck that means. I guess he got control of them. Yep. Anybody shout out and give me another one real quick? You don't have to. You could just choose to. If I go back here. Said he's come out of war dripping with his enemy's blood. So he defeats enemies in war. Killing them. Obviously, the dripping in blood is a bit of a gory image. He swam in the blackness of night hunting monsters out of the ocean. Guys, he hunts ocean monsters in the dark. Ah! Yeah, nobody likes to go in water where you can't see the bottom even, let alone at night. You don't know what's in there. How does this help reinforce him as an epic hero? He has extraordinary, I know I'm not spelling this right, but I'm just going to do extraordinary strength and bravery. I don't know if he was just doing that because he could, or he was needing to. I don't know. All right, we are going to, once you've got that typed, you can hit submit. We're going to close out today with the video I referred to where it's going to take us to the end of the period. It's a 5-minute video about how confidence and boasting is one of those traits that arguably does not necessarily apply to all cases in modern cultures. Generally speaking, we tend to prefer humble heroes as a culture. There are exceptions to that where you see people, like I said, Iron Man. He is an example of someone who, sorry, my internet's slow here. We see that confidence and boasting if you've seen any of those films or things like that. But arguably it's kind of frowned upon. All right, we're gonna watch this video together in our closing minutes together. Our class ends at what? Does our class end at 10:01 or 10:03? I don't know.
I think it's 10:03.
Okay. I'm the one who sent those dang graphics to everybody. I don't even know. I made them. Aren't they
Beowulf is
cool?
the first hero in English literature.
I'm going to play this.
The main character of a poem written in Old
English
centuries ago. Beowulf is a great warrior who uses his incredible strength to defeat 3 monsters. There are still heroes of Beowulf's basic type today. Some superheroes and other heroes of popular culture act basically like Beowulf, even though they were created over 1,000 years later. However, many modern heroes act very differently from Beowulf. Today's values are different from the medieval values of the time of Beowulf's creation. Different values make for different heroes. There are 2 basic types of heroes. Some heroes take the direct approach and overcome obstacles with raw power and strength, both physical and moral. Others use their wits or intelligence, in addition to trickery and ruthlessness. These different types of heroes go back long before Beowulf to ancient Greek heroes from the Iliad and the Odyssey. Achilles is a nearly indestructible warrior with divine strength, while Odysseus is a crafty hero who uses his brains more than his brawn. There are modern versions of these 2 types of heroes. Superman is like Beowulf and fights with superhuman strength, while Batman is a superhero without any special powers who must rely on his wits and determination. There are a whole host of superheroes who follow in Beowulf's footsteps, including the Hulk and Thor. Muscle isn't the only power that modern heroes who follow Beowulf's direct approach have. For example, Luke Skywalker uses the power of the Force in the Star Wars movies, while Harry Potter fights with magic. Beowulf fighting his monsters is not so different from Superman fighting supervillains, or Luke Skywalker fighting Darth Vader, or Harry Potter fighting Voldemort. It is hard for a hero to take a more direct approach than Beowulf. He rips Grendel's arm right out of its socket.
You're going to read that tomorrow.
However, it's not only feats of physical strength that make Beowulf a hero. He also shows moral strength by being a champion of the values of his society. Beowulf's boasting is shown as a good thing. He's showing everyone his qualifications for being a leader and is building up his fame in a world where fame is the only thing that lasts. He also shows himself worthy of heroic status by displaying generosity and giving much of his treasure to his followers. This makes him the opposite of the dragon, who is a villain precisely because it keeps all the treasure for itself.
That's later in the story.
Beowulf is most heroic when he defeats the dragon. This is not because he is such a strong warrior that even in old age he can defeat a dragon, but because he fills the role of a king in his society, showing his bravery while going out to certain death fighting to protect his people. These values might be respected today, but they are very different from the values behind modern heroes. For example, in the Star Wars films, Han Solo often boasts like Beowulf, but the context is different. Han Solo is not upholding the heroic values of Beowulf's time. When he brags about the speed of the Millennium Falcon, his ship often loudly breaks down just at that moment. He looks foolish because boasting is not part of the conduct of a modern hero. Consider Luke Skywalker's most heroic moment in the films. He coaxes the good out of his father, his enemy, by refusing to fight. This makes Luke Skywalker a modern hero. Beowulf would never do anything like this. The values shown in Star Wars reflect the values of America after the Vietnam War. They're vastly different from the values of medieval Scandinavia, where the poem is set. One modern work directly addresses the differences between Beowulf and modern heroes. J.R.R. Tolkien is best known for writing The Lord of the Rings, but he was also a Beowulf scholar. He wrote a character into his epic that is very much like Beowulf. Boromir is a boastful, proud, strong warrior, just like Beowulf. His greatest wish is to fight for his people. However, in the world of The Lord of the Rings, Beowulf's values lead to ruin. Boromir wants to use the One Ring as a weapon to fight his enemies, just as Beowulf would. However, this craving for power, even in a good fight, corrupts Boromir. He is destroyed by the ring. The unassuming Frodo Baggins is the hero of this story. Frodo is a modern hero because he refuses power and fame and is content to be an ordinary person. In Tolkien's society, there are nuclear weapons, so in his story, acting like the medieval Beowulf brings disastrous consequences. Beowulf was not meant for the modern world.
Okay.
It is remarkable.
All right. Is that kind of interesting, that context, I hope? And when we talk about the idea of heroes and cultures, I try to make the Anglo-Saxon stuff seem somewhat relevant. And for that reason, I think it is. If you guys have questions for me, we don't have time right now. I'm free, but I don't know what you have next period. If you have lunch next period, you can sit and chat with me. But that's all. Good luck with period 4. I will be prepping for my journalism classes, which I don't have lessons for yet because life. Okay. Thank you guys. Make sure you hit turn in on today's assignment. Tomorrow you're reading the next section of Beowulf. There's a pre-recorded lesson that will be posted for you, and then we'll be all meeting as a group next week. Bye.
Have a good one.
You too.
Bye, Miss Girls. Have a good day.
Bye. Have a good one.
Have a good day.
Same. Aaron, did you like that hero stuff?
Yes.
Good.
Bye. I hear it all over my room.
So listen, we're going to get to watch Avengers next. Remember it was like, how am I going to do Avengers with a hybrid schedule? We're all meeting together. So I'm going to try to wrap up Beowulf by Tuesday and then test Wednesday and then watch movies as much as I can. I can't watch all of it. I don't know. We'll see. But I'll be able to do that because we'll all be watching it together.
Yeah, that's exciting.
I know.
It's like we probably over a million times.
It's just and I have some prompts that go with it. So anyway.
Awesome.
All right.
All right. See you later.
Bye.